Hello. First, I'd just like to thank everybody who came for being here and for helping keep my kids out there. Um, Part of this is obviously it's been between yesterday and today a year since my children have gone missing. Um, and a big part of what I want to do is thank the local media and the community for keeping them out there. For me, we keep things going, but we really don't even have to remind people around here anymore. So I just wanted to thank everyone for that up front. Um, Beyond that, it's basically about updating and figuring out where to go from here, and kind of where we're at with certain things. Um, Lindsay, the kid's grandmother, and Catherine's mom, she's going to update you on some stuff, that she's been privy to that I'm not. My sister Elaine, she runs the searches, so any questions on when those are going to be, you guys can direct towards her. For me, it's just kind of about making sure the awareness is there, making sure that we keep their faces out there, and continuing forward. We're continuing to run leads. We're continuing to investigate on our side as well. What we're hoping to accomplish here is to get possibly some more help from the police on the side of investigating the missing persons part of it. I'm looking to hopefully get a meeting with them coming up very shortly and see what we can do about that. They're definitely doing a full-bore investigation on a homicide, but I don't feel like we have enough resources put towards looking for my children. So we're going to continue doing all of that, and that's kind of where we're at this point. No one is anywhere near giving up or quitting on my kids, though, and we're going to continue to look for them. Is there any questions on anything that I've stated? If not, then I'll turn it over. Okay.
I guess, being that we have hit the 1 year anniversary, mentally, has this changed anything? Not in terms of positivity or negativity, but has this hit you in a different way because of this mark on the calendar?
Um, I wouldn't say necessarily the mark itself on the calendar. I mean, for me, it kind of started yesterday, because what a lot of people don't realize is they kind of mark the 8th off. On the 7th is actually when my son went missing initially. And that was kind of, I wasn't aware at the time, but that's when it actually started for us. So between these 2 days, it's definitely, something that we look at and say, it's been a long time, and it kind of reminds you to look back on where you've been throughout the year. And one of the things I was actually talking to someone about last night is it's kind of strange because I look back and it doesn't feel like it's been as long as it has looking back, but every day has felt like it's taken forever. So at the same time, getting here felt like it took so long, and then you look back and it seems so short. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a kind of a change in direction in a way too, where we go, okay, well, it's been this long. Some of the things that would work, in the first month or two, obviously is not going to work now. We figure out what's been missed that we can't go back and redo. We look at, whether it be our side or the police side of the investigation, that's just not redoable. And unfortunately, there are things that were missed, and now we have to figure out from there where to go. Quite frankly, one of the things that I can say is one of the biggest problems that we probably run into is that there's a system in place right now where we have someone, who maybe she doesn't know where they are now necessarily since it's a year later, but she definitely knows what she initially did with them, or who had them. And if we figure out where they were, we can kind of figure out where to go from there to find them. And I mean, we're in a situation where there's a court order from a judge where the police can't even question her about it. Um, you know, and so I mean, we're kind of at the mercy of just whether she chooses to speak or not on that front. So, being a year later, it's just frustrating being there.
I mean, there obviously are rights every individual, including Catherine, has.
hmm
But as a
My,
father, you want to find your
I wouldn't I
kids.
wouldn't even say as a father of my children, just as a person looking on. What I would never understand is how someone has more rights institutionally than two children have the right to be found or looked for. To me, when you have kids involved, then I mean, you exhaust every option, whatever it is, and quite frankly, some of the rules should even go out the window when kids are involved. Um, so I wouldn't say necessarily as far as everyone has rights this way or that way. It's just a matter of sometimes you got to prioritize on what's important. And quite frankly, I just think it's more important to find two children than to have police not question someone who may know where they are.
When was the last time you talked to Catherine?
For me, it was, I guess, about 2.5 months ago. Is that about right? Maybe 3 months ago. Actually, she was on the phone with her mom and asked to speak with me. I was patched through on the three-way, and it wasn't a real productive conversation. It just started out with her just talking to me about some small talk, me basically stating that I had no interest in small talk, and I just want, if we were going to talk about where the kids are, that was a conversation we could have. Anything else could be had after that conversation, and that was kind of the end of it. You look like you had a question.
Yes, you say you have no quit in you. You're not about to give up. But over the course of the year, there had to be lows besides the highs. You come forward, and I know you're courageous, but can you just share the ups and downs?
I'll start with this. I wouldn't call it courageous. I'm just a father looking for my kids. But I mean, as far as highs and lows, it's pretty much just a matter of constantly missing them. It's not when you have dips or anything like that. Like I would say, if it's going to be a low point, it would have been July 3rd, November 20th would be the hardest days whenever their birthdays came and they weren't here. But there's never a point where you're going to give up on your children, I wouldn't think, unless there's, unless someone produces some hard evidence that they're dead. I feel like they should be continued to be looked for, and I believe they deserve it. I mean, we're talking about rights. I think my kids have the right to be investigated on and looked for alive if we have no evidence that they're dead. Anything else for me, or we're good?
We may want to, talk individually.
I would say that's fine. I'll answer questions afterwards. If you need me to come back up, I will. Right now, I'm going to turn it over to Lindsey, and she'll update you on what's going on with Catherine herself as well.
Yes, and I echo Troy's appreciation for you all keeping this in the news. I have spoken with Catherine daily, sometimes up to 4 or 5 times a day since April. Mainly with the same message that I'm the only one who can say, mother to mother, I'm here for you until this is resolved, and I'm willing to help whoever is involved in whatever the situation. I'm not going to leave you. And so our conversations, I think, are good. I'm very hopeful based on our conversations. I'm not going to go to a lot of detail. She is very clear that she was aware of what she was doing a year ago today. I think she was too, and we've agreed on that. And obviously where she is, there's a host of different options she can take that will drive where she lands. And my direction to her right now is that Sarah and Jacob's brother deserves to know where they are, as well as the rest of the family, and that she has a lot of people here willing to support coming to the answer. And so I'm very confident that we're going to continue these conversations, and at the right time, things will hopefully get to where we want them to be. She is very cooperative with the treatment plan, is exercising, and is being responsible. So I'm going to continue these conversations. I also run the Facebook page, and of course there's a lot of questions and suggestions and theories and ideas on Facebook, and so I make her aware that there's a lot of visibility to this case, and that it's not going to go away, that I'm not stopping, and we're going to continue now more than ever to getting to the details of where Sarah and Jacob are.
Troy just said that he would like to know where they were a year ago, where she may have left them a year ago. Have you not gotten to that point where she's been able to share anything substantive?
Nothing substantive. She is very careful on details, and I've come closer recently just to saying, I want a connection, a date, a location, a phone number, a name, or whatever, and I'll help whoever it is get through this. That the longer this goes on, the more difficult it becomes for those involved. including and most notably her. So she's aware of that. Again, she has every intention of being competent at her hearing on the 18th. And so I'm proud of her at least moving in that direction and being on, her treatment plan and working with what needs to be done.
In your conversations with Catherine, have there been certain aha moments or things that she's said, maybe intentionally or inadvertently, that you think are worth sharing with the public?
There's really not much I can share with the public right now. I mean, the family we have our own investigation. We have a private investigator who's worked pro bono since the very beginning, and he's been very helpful to guide me on questions. Knowing the situation and knowing this illness, I don't really think there's going to be an aha moment. I think we're going to slowly piece things together and or continue to appeal to her to do the right thing and to bring this to closure. So, I usually call them babies because I have 4 children. So for the beginning, I called them babies, and she didn't like that. They're 3 and 4. I'm like, I'm a grandmother. So that's all I can do is continue to appeal to her that we're going to get there.
It seems like you feel time will be the healer here in terms of Catherine being able to speak freely?
Under the right treatment regimen, and I think with her trust of what's going to happen, possibly. I've let her know that I'm considering every single option, and I personally feel that the 2 separate times that Jacob disappeared and then Sarah disappeared were times where there had to be cars out. It was early one Monday morning from Clarksburg, Sunday afternoon from my home in Darnestown, that somebody may have seen something but doesn't remember it, and so that's why we're trying to jog people's memory. Did you see something? And maybe just now recall it, because she was out during fairly busy time periods in this area.
Ma'am, you had said that you think that Catherine knew what she was doing a year ago. What were your thoughts on then the judge finding her not competent to stand trial?
That's difficult because Catherine, I've never been privy to her medical records, and that the reason is because I don't sugarcoat, and I pretty much say, we're going to go by the rules, and this is what's going to happen. So I don't know her treatment regimen during this past year. I think I know more now. It's puzzling to me because since April she's seemed quite lucid and logical conversations, no odd behavior or odd comments that I would question. So I think she's very capable of having that conversation and being competent.
Does she seem to, can I just ask?
Sure.
Does she seem to want to get better, to be competent? And did you ever ask if she would refuse medication or do anything to help her remember or divulge the information?
I think, and understand, I'm limiting what what I say, but she's very willing to attempt to take medications that help. As you know, the side effects are horrific, and so a lot of our conversations are, stick with it a little bit longer. You'll find the right thing, and sometimes, yes, you have side effects that are almost as bad as the illness, but I'm confident that she is aware of what happened. She's very bright. I think she was unhappy, and that she's aware of what happened. So, and we've had these conversations. I'm very candid with her. So,
does she want to disclose? Do you think she wants to tell you?
That's a tough question. I think I do think at some point she would have. I think it becomes more complicated with time. And I can only hope and continue to encourage her to share the situation so we know where to go next.
your opinion, what's holding her back from sharing? And ultimately, we get to chalk it up to one or a few things.
I think she's been afraid all along she would lose her children. And so it's a lot of, some of the thinking is not logical. Some of it is a combination of different thoughts and feelings. But that's why I'm trying to maintain that I'm not going anywhere, that I'll stick by whatever we have to do and whatever we have to go through to make this right and to allow her to be with her children, whatever the situation is.
So, one of the things that I can speak to that you were talking about throughout the past, let's say the 6 months or so leading up to all this, for the treatment and stuff like that, I was around for a lot of it. I took her to her day programs and things like this. And what I can tell you is from December 2013 to when this happened, there was a major progression. She was nowhere near the state that she was in whenever she was, whatever you want to call it, committed or whatever. But she was a heck of a lot closer to who I met when we got together as opposed to that person. There were definitely conversations we had where there was thought processes that I would question, and I knew that would be the case as we went forward because there was obviously issues. But what I can say about your question was if she was confident and knew what she was doing when she did the act itself, even. There's evidence that was found around the house that it was planned. So she definitely knew exactly what she was doing. It's we have 2 points of missing pointed out by the police, when in fact there would be 2 points of last seen. But if you're really looking at points of missing, then I'm pretty certain that she took Jacob from my house. She brought him there first. The shoes that he was wearing right here when we were playing that day are sitting in my living room. His clothes were changed. His clothes that he wore earlier are at my house right now. So I think a lot of the resources and a lot of the theories of them being in a dumpster on 28 in Darnestown, it doesn't even make sense. It's not to say that, like I said, I'm not just sitting here saying I'm their father, so they have to be out there, they have to be alive because I'm their father. I know there's possibilities out there. I know what statistics are. I know the situation itself, and I'm well aware that there's a possibility that my kids are dead out there. But there's no evidence of that, and until you produce something like that, then I don't know how you just give up on 2 children and say we're not even going to investigate this side fully. The issue here is, well, I guess it's 2 issues. One is Catherine appears to me, you were talking about everyone has rights, to have more rights in that place than my kids have the right to be found. I'm not saying that anyone should go without rights, but I'm saying I think that 2 kids, the right for 2 kids to be looked for and investigated trumps the rights of someone to be questioned in Clifton T. Perkins. The second thing is we have a system right now where you're getting, in an investigation, I don't know how you predetermine the end result of it unless you have a body or something like that. So, anything you're looking for, you'll find. If you're in a relationship and you're looking for someone to cheat on you, even if they're not, you'll find reasons to believe it. So if you go in with something that's predetermined, it's pretty hard to change that path. And whenever the detectives are given a predetermined result and now they're looking to prove that result, they're working backwards instead of forwards. So we need people on the other end who are going to work forwards. And quite frankly, in the end, when the trial comes about, whenever they do finally find her competent and they go forward with what appears to be a no-body homicide case, then what's going to be on trial is the investigation itself. So if you have not exhausted options over here, then how have you proven that they're not there? I don't see any way to go forward on their end or our end that's beneficial to anyone without opening up a full-on missing persons investigation on the children. And that's flat out what needs to happen.
Story, so you were here yesterday, not yesterday, a year ago yesterday.
Mhm.
You were here with Jacob.
Right.
Is that what
It was a year ago yesterday. We went to my oldest son's first soccer game, and we came out here and we ran around, played for probably about 2 or 3 hours, and then after dropping my kids off, that's, I guess, at some point that evening is when everything started.
That was the 7th.
That was the 7th.
And it was both kids.
But both kids, right. All three of my children were with me at that point, as well as Catherine. We were all here. And then I dropped them off that evening at Lindsey's, where we had rules and we had a system in place to where she was not to be alone with them because of the situation, obviously.
But I wasn't there.
Right, right.
Just to clarify, she had been under treatment prior to this, as I understand. And was there a disappearance or more than one disappearance before this?
Before the 7th?
Before 1 year ago.
No, if someone had disappeared with my kids and then we got them back, that person would not be around my children no matter who it is.
What I was asking.
Oh.
Did somebody say 2 disappearances?
Right, the kids disappeared at 2 separate times, the 7th and the 8th.
That's what you were referring to.
Right.
I just wanted to clarify.
Right, yes.
Lindsey, can I just follow up on something you said about Catherine being afraid of losing her kids? Was she all alone? Was she afraid prior to the kids going missing, of losing her kids prior to the kids going missing, which might have led to her taking whatever action she took?
I believe so. I think one thing in terms of, and I'll just finish with one comment about her. I agree with Troy. She had a long road, but of 9 months, and we had a system of trying to support her to be with the children, and obviously there were, it wasn't perfect. But Catherine was at my house the week before, over the weekend, because Labor Day was the 1st last year, for 4 days with 3 children. It was wonderful. We went to the farm, we bought groceries, we came home, we cooked, we played Mary Poppins. And so I agree with Troy, and that period of 1 week later this occurs, it's almost it's not feasible that she would have become psychotic within that period of time, because so part of it is just you learn what you're dealing with and where you've been in the past. That's why I think she's fully capable of recovering and becoming competent and going forward, because where I've seen her in the past and where I saw her the week before this happened.
Lindsey, what's in terms of the police department and where their investigation stands, what you guys know, what are some of the major milestones that they've had since we last talked in this type of setting?
I'll defer to Troy on that. I personally think that you don't have to read the paper more than once a week to see all the trauma around mental illness. And I think the knee-jerk reaction from a lot of people, regardless, and officials, is mental illness, particularly schizophrenia, doom and gloom. And so in terms of the police, we divide and conquer. That's kind of Troy's question.
So what was the actual question?
I guess, since we talked in this sort of press conference setting, what have been some of the updates that the police department has given you about this investigation?
Let me see. There was a body found up in Massachusetts in the harbor. I had to go give DNA to make sure it wasn't my daughter, which it turned out to not be. Let me see. We've had some leads that they've tried to help us run, a couple of them that have not fully been run out yet. They've sent me pictures several times, to check out. And that's something I will speak to is, if you do think you see them, then, instead of, I'm not saying not to put it on Facebook or let us know, but call the police right away. One of the messages I continue to put out there is be wrong if it's not them and you call the police and check it out, rather than being wrong the other way. Also, we're a year in. These kids are going to change, especially at their age, and grow and look different now. One of the things I do know that I've talked a lot with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children and a lot of other people, is when no bodies are found and things like that, it's over a 90 percentile that comes home at some point. And now, granted, it may be 10 years later, which we're not hoping for that. But and the way it tends to happen after a certain amount of time isn't that someone is being vigilant about necessarily those particular kids. It's just people who look to protect children in general. If you see something very, very off-putting or weird with kids, feel free to call in. And that's how a lot of these kids are found, because something is different or off. And then whenever the police come out, they figure out that it was these missing kids from a year ago, from 2 years ago, or whatever it is. There's several cases like that. So just be vigilant for children in general, not just mine even. And that's kind of where it's at with that. With the pictures and things like this, just pay attention to things that will not change. You know, one of the things that they have is cleft chins. You know, the pronounced forehead on Jacob as opposed to his hairstyle. You know, their ears, their eyes, things like that won't change. The other stuff could easily change over the course of a year in kids that age. So just continue to be vigilant. You know, like I said, I appreciate the fact that the community is still out there, and I don't even have to remind people. I just recently got word that there's new stuff that just went up in North Carolina that we have nothing to do with. You know, there's been, I don't even know how many flyers sent out. We have digital billboards out now, thanks to, you know, Clear Channel and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They've helped us out with that. So there's a lot of stuff that continues on, and we're going to keep going until we find them or find out what happened. Either way, we need to know the truth in the end. That's, you know, and the last thing I will say is this: in about 3 weeks, we're going to be doing a larger search again. So anyone, you know, who can volunteer and do that. My sister Relaine runs that. Actually, I'll let her speak briefly to that, and then we're pretty much done. We'll take individual interviews unless you have specific questions now. I forgot to tell you you're going to do that.
Thank you. I didn't know I was speaking, but yeah, we're planning another massive search. We haven't had one for a while due to the weather, and then we've also had some tips come in on the children being alive and well with certain people. So instead of putting massive amounts of people out there, we opted to wait and follow through with some of the tips and everything. Now we're planning for September 26th, but I do have a fraternity with about 150 members and then a sorority with 200 who are coming out. We're waiting to hear back from them. So all the fraternities and sororities, all the church member groups, all of the scouts, whoever, you know, 18 and older who brings an ID, we welcome you to come out and help to search. If we can't do it on the 26th, we'll know by Friday, and we'll post that and get that out to the media and everything, and it would be the next following weekend on October 3rd. So we're really looking forward just to getting out there. We're covering both ends like Troy says, and we're just doing everything we can.
Raylene, did you say September 26th?
26.
26.
Yes.
Or the 3rd.
Yeah,
Or
right.
the
Depending upon these groups that are coming through, since it's going to be a couple hundred people with them, we're going to wait until hopefully Friday to hear back from them.
Where are you guys going to be focusing the search?
We have a lot of area that we have not covered. So we've currently, you know, recently we've been up in Clarksburg and more on the Darnestown side. We're spreading out a little bit past Darnestown. We'll be up here a little bit past Clarksburg, going up 27 on the backside and in some parts of Germantown. But we're spreading out a little bit further. The places that we've covered, we're only going to be recovering if we've had some things come through on that area, and we just didn't follow up yet.
Any stats as to how many searches have been conducted, how many square miles, anything along?
I can get those, but I don't know those right now. Yeah, everything is there and logged in, so I have to do that. Thank you.
So basically, that's pretty much it. Thank you guys very much for coming out. Thank you for continuing to keep my kids out there. Like I said, if you have any specific questions, then we'll do some individual afterwards. But like I said, you know, I just want to say thank you very much.